Dave, bro, honored to be doing this right now. So, for whoever's listening, my name's Eric Butts. Dave has been one of my best friends for the last 15 years. And one of the reasons he is my best friend is because since day one, he's like the most honest, no bullshit person that I know. So when he came to me and said, I have something I need to tell you, and I could tell, bro, how uncomfortable you were uncomfortable telling me the story because you knew it was something that, for most people would sound like it's crazy, but because I know you and love you and know like your character, I was right in from the first time we started talking about it. So, I'm gonna put this over to you to tell this story. Does that sound good, dude?
It sounds great.
All
And
right,
the inspiration for needing to get the story onto video is so that I could share it without the emotional trauma that I go through every time that I do tell it, although there's value to that. So on last Tuesday, March 9th, was a 20th year anniversary of an experience I had that was life-changing and blew my mind. The origin of the story is that I lost my cousin, one of my little cousins. I have a lot of them. I'm one of the oldest. And he was a young man who we lost to leukemia. And it crushed our family, obviously. And we had buried him on March 9th. And a little bit of a preface to the story. You've heard about NDEs, near-death experiences, and that my experience was really similar to some of them in some ways, but my experience was based off the passing and the emotional trauma from the passing of someone else rather than me. So what I've come to learn is the term for that is called an STE, a spiritually transformative experience.
Interesting.
So trying to come to grips with my experience and trying to understand it, and it being 20 years, like I told you earlier, it's something that I think about and am affected by every single day. So we lost my cousin, Scotty. We buried him on the 9th. And then later on, I had come home with my wife and oldest daughter now, Lily, who was 1.5 years old. One of the things that we're trying to do here is trying to get this on tape, and I felt really comfortable with you helping me do this, was to again put it into a situation that my family could view, my children can view, whether I'm here or gone or what have you, and then maybe give them an opportunity to experience the story and then have their own interpretations and questions and that type of stuff. And one of the biggest problems I had that day was actually leaving my family in Exton and coming home without them. And so that inspired the situation for me. As I got home, Kelly and Lily had gone to bed, and I was still just emotionally distraught with the situation.
It makes sense, dude. You buried a family member that day. So.
Yeah, and so 20 years ago, I was 35.
A young family member, not somebody you can look at and go,
yeah.
Hey, he lived his life, we're celebrating. It's like, nah, dude, that's someone young. And leukemia, I've had, close friends die of leukemia. It's a horrible, happens way faster. You got a little bit of hope in the beginning, and then that hope is torn away before the end.
Exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
He had
gone into remission. He was 23, just graduated, University of Virginia, like a brilliant kid, spiritually and intellectually. So it was rough. And I don't want to lose sight of why this experience happened to me. It was Scotty. And as you'll see as the story progresses, he is the inspiration of this. And I do believe that as an angel, he allowed me to have this experience. And
what an awesome gift. What an awesome gift for someone
unreal.
leaving this earth to be able to give to someone who apparently, obviously cared about him as much as you did.
Right. Yes. So Scotty still lives in my heart every day, and I know my family heart as well. And so 20 years, it goes by so fast, and here we are. And it's a testament to someone like Scotty leaving his mark on the world in such a short amount of time. So we're getting into the story. I was alone in my office. It was around 11 o'clock. I was distraught. And I was missing my family, and I was so sad that we couldn't have stayed there. And I was in my chair, like at the window, looking out the window. And so the state of mind that I'm in is best described as I was in a prayer state. I was emotionally distraught and overcome with the love of Scotty, of my family, and that love created like a trance-like situation where I was praying, and I found myself looking up to God, looking up to the skies, and my emotion wasn't a blaming emotion. I wasn't angry. It wasn't a situation. It was just what it was. And I, in retrospect, I believe that overflowing of love that I felt for my family allowed the experience to happen, where I looked up into the sky to God, and as crazy as it sounds, I was taken from my body, and I was shot like a rocket. Like my spirit was taken out, and I was shot like a rocket into the outer space, into the cosmos, if you will.
And I think it's important for people to know, right, that you were totally stone cold sober, not any drug or a drop of alcohol, and you were totally awake. It's not like you were in a prayer state where you might have fell asleep and that you had a dream or anything. Like, you were wide awake, stone cold
Correct.
sober. Correct?
Yeah, and that's one of the things people would say, like, what kind of altered state were you in, and that I was completely conscious, and it was momentary, from like this to as a comet rushing through the cosmos and surrounded by darkness, heading straight up. And at one point, on the liftoff, if you will, there was two other stars that came from my left and my right. Okay. So I was going up, and two other stars came and exploded into me. We made contact, and we all reached the apex and exploded into one another, which was you'll hear me talk a little bit about nuclear explosions. It was stars colliding, which created an explosion. At the same time, another star had come directly down, right? So there were three stars, and then a fourth star came that I came to learn was the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit came and unified this star, and it had caused another massive explosion. These are the type of details, Eric, that I would tell my family. It's, I don't know what your opinion is, but that sounds crazy, right?
Dude, listen, again, that's why we started off with me knowing you as a person, because nothing you're going to say here sounds crazy to me, because I know you, and I know you're not making anything up. Like, this is really the experience that you had.
So this experience was an absolute explosion of light that immediately translated to love. Okay. Wow. So there was the explosion, and then the continuance of the journey as one star. So I'm shivering here. So now I am enveloped by love and light, and I am moving at speed beyond light, beyond time. This is where the true experience kind of started to happen, because everything that we're going to talk about there are moments in here that have a lot of information, for lack of a better word. Okay, so within seconds, within moments, so much is happening. But I am obviously confused, right? I'm kind of trying to get my bearings, and what I realize is I feel like I'm not. I think I might have told you this. I feel like I am on the nose of a being, of a lion, of something that is taking me, and I realize that I am heading towards heaven. So as I'm traveling at the speed of light, I realize many things. One of them being that there's no time now. I've gone into a time and space where time is absent, and I am starting to learn things as I go about where I'm going and what this place is. But the main thing is that every second, every every measurement of distance towards where I'm going, I am more enveloped with an overwhelming amount of love.
That's
constantly.
Awesome.
So something that
Sounds awesome.
It's hard to explain. Love is not a stagnant.
Yeah, what's love feel like then?
There's not 100% of love, especially when we're talking about God. Love is not like in our world. We love our children, we love our sports teams, we love different things, and
Yeah,
maybe
we like our sports teams.
we look at it like.
But that's a good example. Like, I know when you hug your kid what love feels like. I don't know, absent of another person, what love feels like. So that sounds amazing that you were going through what was outer space to you towards heaven, and you just kept feeling more and more love.
Yes, because it broke the barriers of what you thought, what you understood love was, right? Because finite love here, you love your children. Can you love your child more? Can you love your children more?
Grandchildren, you can.
Right?
You think you can't love anyone more than your kids. Then you meet your kids' kids and you're like, oh shit.
But what I mean is, you love your grandchild today, right now. You love them so much, correct? There's
Can't
no way
imagine loving anything more.
That's what I mean. The fact I was taught that you can. And
that's amazing.
That was, it wasn't like it was given to me in a verbal. I mean, it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
The feeling at this point is that I realize that there's a lot going on in this as I'm traveling, but then I realize relatively quickly that I am traveling somewhere, and where that is I think that I'm a comet, I am heading towards God, and God is the beyond light in the distance. And I realize that every second that I move further towards that God, He is welcoming me in, and the amount of love just raptures and gets more and more every second as you approach Him. And so I am flabbergasted with this experience and the fact that the overwhelming love, and as I'm, the speed of which I'm traveling in is just pure rapture, continual. And it's, there's a distance still that I have to cover. Time and space.
How do you know that? Like, you see the distance,
yes.
Or there just was more time that happened before you got there?
It was in the distance. He was in the distance. Excuse me. God was in the distance, and I was being brought to Him. I was not with Him yet.
Got it. But you're seeing yourself get closer and closer.
I am flying towards Him.
That's crazy.
I realize that every step closer to Him, the love is getting like exploding me, which is crazy. So much so that through the rapture, I posed the question to myself and to the Holy Spirit of, if this is heaven, and if this was going to be heaven, I posed the question: if this is heaven, then what is hell? And then that is when the Holy Spirit kind of chuckled and thought, like, hey, that's a wonderful question. Why don't I show you what hell is?
And you're like,
So
maybe I shouldn't have asked.
well,
But
in retrospect,
how do you not ask that question? Like,
so it was something. It was brazen of me. Okay, I was being you. This is not a place you want to mess around, right?
now, wait, no, go ahead.
No, it was brazen of me, and that was appreciated to some degree. And it's kind of like a child, Sometimes you're gonna let them maybe get close to the fire, right? They can't get burnt, you know what I mean, in their mind. And sometimes you might maybe let them get a little close, and you appreciate that because there's a learning experience. And I felt that the whole way through, is that I was like a child, and I was being shown things, but there was a realism to it, in the sense of realism is not the word of humanism. There was the interaction was as if I was being shown stuff, but it was not taking away who I was. Although they're like I said, in retrospect, there's a fine line when you're talking about these things. So as that question came out of my mouth, the Holy Spirit decided to show me, and I turned on a dime. I'm heading towards heaven, and I turn away from heaven, complete 180, and I was shown hell immediately. And I know what hell is. It is the absence of God and his love. It is the moving away from that light, from God. And that is what hell is. There's none of this,
devil or
devils,
fiery,
Dante's, and all this kind of stuff. It is simple, and it is the moving away. And just as I told you, every millimeter closer to God that I got, the love was overwhelming. When I tell you the complete and utter despair, as soon as I turned around and was shown the darkness, because that's what it is. Later on, I do this thing that I'll open up the Bible and I'll read what I land on. And at one time when I was thinking about this, I opened it up, and it's the part of where Jesus says that it's the weeping, the darkness, and the gnashing of teeth. In retrospect, that is what it was. And that doesn't sound so bad, maybe, right?
I mean, there's we're dudes, so we can't have a baby. So there's no pain worse than tooth pain. And even the thought of like people grinding their teeth can be something that really freaks people out. So mashing teeth does sound, I can't think of anything that sounds more horrible than mashing teeth.
Yes, and it's because of the situation that you're in, is what that specific analogy is towards. Every moment that you are moving away from God, the amount of utter despair and every adjective related to it that you experience continues to grow. So it's the complete opposite of his love. It is him pushing you away from him. And that is the eternal. And every second, every millimeter that you are moving away from him is compounded beyond belief, the misery and despair that is accompanied it with, especially after you have learned what is available to you through his love. Okay. So it was so bad that I begged that I had not made a mistake. and you are begging that this is not your fate. It is one of the messages that the only message that later on we'll talk about that I was given. Everybody wants to know whether or not there's a God or whether there's a heaven and all that. The real question is there a hell? Because that is what missing in our world today and probably forever. The unknown of that. And I am here as witness to say, yes, there is, and this is what it is. And
Something
that
you
is
said to me, the most powerful thing about hell that you said to me was knowing what you know from that experience, you wouldn't wish Adolf Hitler went to hell.
exactly. So
That's
it was, yes. So I literally was so overtaken with this experience. And I remember saying, I could not wish this on my worst enemy. I would not wish this on anyone. And then I spoke the words, not even Hitler. And at that point, I guess I got the message, right? Because thank heavens, I was turned back around. And that brief moment will last with me forever. It is what I fear, and this being 20 years, I told you, I've told a handful of people this experience. It's been something that is difficult to tell. It's definitely difficult to think about that and feel what I feel right now after, going back there.
crazy. 20 years later, that still gives you that feeling that you don't want anybody to ever experience, which is
Exactly. And that is,
I got chills.
if there was a message, it is, please, we will be judged. He will judge us. And anyone out there that's putting them in the positions that they think, well,
But listen, this is for your family, right? So they'll be happy to know we'll be judged. But when you told me the things that you're gonna go to hell for, put them out there for your family. But I don't think there's any chance anyone in your family. Well, I can't say that because, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you okay with saying what you told me that are the things that will make you go to hell?
Well, I have to be careful because I am not the decider. Let's table that until later because now we have to get to God.
All right, yeah. So hell, you saw it. Luckily, the Holy Spirit turned you around. You're back on your way to heaven.
And you cannot, you can probably, me enough, but you can probably imagine how how happy that made me, right? Because
at a time when, just a little bit ago before this experience, you probably couldn't have thought of anything that would have made you happy after just burying Scotty.
Oh, well, yes.
So all part of the reason why this story is so friggin' important. So go ahead. Okay, so now you turn around.
I turn back around and I am finally going back towards heaven. And there's time here. Time doesn't exist, but this is I start learning other things now. I think I told you, imagine yourself on this ride, if you will, with time, with heading towards this light and having an opportunity to think, ask questions, right there. After that question, these are easy, but going through here and realizing, and a lot of people will say about, that time doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist. And I learned a lot of things through many stages of this story. One of them right now was being hell, continuing on to heaven, and then realizing, being given the knowledge of one specific thing was that when we die, everyone that has come before us has just died. There's a difference between time on earth and time into the heavenly realm is it's so beyond what we can understand here because of our physical being.
It sounds like you're saying there almost is no time. Like
There is
if
no time there.
if I pass away and my grandmom who passed away 90 years before just passed away, then at least time doesn't exist there the way it exists here.
It is beyond time, and that is exactly right. Everyone that has gone from us from this earthly plane and God's plane has just passed away.
Which, by the way, is comforting, because in my mind, I don't want to think of my grandmom as waiting there 90 years. I know I'm the person she loved more than anyone when she passed. I don't want her to be waiting 90 years, or hopefully for me, 115 years for me to finally get there and her go, oh, I've been waiting for you. It's like, no, Grandma,
Right.
we just passed together and we're celebrating. That sounds comforting.
Yes, and so your grandmother worrying about you, she's not worried, right? She's not worried. In this realm, we aren't worried. But what about the suffering that you've done between your grandmother's passing and today? That is what was most valuable to me to learn was,
Okay.
in relation to Scotty, we all suffer now. We've been suffering. We miss these people that have gone that we love between us, but they are waiting for us, and our suffering will be so short-lived. When we finally get there and they have just passed, all of that misery that we've been through will no longer exist. And we will almost, in some respects, regret it, right? Because, a lot of our misery is because the questions aren't answered as to whether there's a heaven or a hell or a God. So we don't know these things. We have faith. Some of us do, some of us don't. All these different questions here on earth, and without knowing these things, we're human and flawed. And I think in some respects, we put ourselves through things that we don't need to because we don't know the answer to that one question. If you knew that God was real and heaven was real and your grandmother is there with him now, would that ease your suffering here on earth?
I mean, listen, the answer to that is yes, because I am doing this because part of the reason I'm doing this is because you gave me that feeling when I told the story. Like, I had relief of things that I was worried about. I didn't have your experience, but knowing that you had this experience and I trust that you had this experience, it was like I got some answers to things that made me think less about things that I dreaded more before hearing your story. So,
well, that, and that is as let's continue, but as we go on, that is what the purpose of this is. And
good. Well, it's working.
The question of, like, who do I tell, who do I not tell, as we'll see a little bit later, how this
time will tell.
Circuit.
Time will tell on that. Don't let that get in the way of what you're doing here.
So, well, even within the story. So I am on my way now. I am learning things. I am in a realm of newborn rapture. I am a child, and I am heading towards heaven. And so, as I get closer and closer, it becomes more and more. The light within me, within the Holy Spirit, within this vessel, this traveling vessel, is reaching a fever point of the apex of ecstasy and love and physical, incomprehensible brightness. And I am approaching God, and I am the most happiest. That the fact that this is happening to me is beyond belief. I can't believe it. I am absolutely overjoyed at being given this opportunity. Like, holy shit, man! And then I meet into God, and I am brought into God. And I think I told you it's really hard to explain. God was a star, right? Heaven was a star, and the only way I can explain that moment of impact was mercury. So, mercury is silver. It's a ball of metal that's a fluid, right? So I am brought into heaven, and it was like a splash into light that existed in a physical
Through
realm.
something that felt like almost a liquid metal that you went through.
Yes, yes. And it was like, like I was a drop that was a drop of light that was brought into and absorbed by a much larger drop of light, which was God and heaven. And I found myself in the middle of God's heart, at which he told me was heaven. So the center of God's heart is what heaven is. And I thought that I understood love on the journey there. I told you it kept getting more and more. When I was in the rapture of God's heart in heaven, surrounded by his light that was so brilliant. And, my son asked me, about the colors and that. And it was so bright. There were blues, there was yellows, but it was so blinding, sulfuric light.
Hmm.
That I was surrounded in. And I knew that heaven existed, and he was with me there. And I think I told you this experience right now at this moment, and also the entire experience, the best way that I could explain it was I understood many things that I saw many things I didn't understand, and I understood many things I didn't see, which is kind of a cool,
including God, right? You never looked at God. I remember you telling me.
So at this point, yes. So God was that light. He was that encompassing being. Later on, the experience continues, but later on is when there's more of a physicality to him.
Okay. In the beginning, it was just light.
So I am in this light, and he bestows his love upon me. And I am not worthy of this. I still don't know why I was given this opportunity to understand him in this light. So I'm there for a moment's eternity, right? Not long enough. And the time has come to an end. You would not want to leave, right? There is no reason to want to leave. The most profound thing that I could get across is the depths of his love are so far beyond our understanding how much he actually loves us. And that was what the main message was, is that regardless, I must know that his love is beyond anything comprehensible to us, and that it is so devastating, his love. And in respect to hell and the turning away, he loves us so much that if we are going to be sent away from him, it is breaking his heart. And
I like that you
hard.
said that, dude. Devastating love. So it's devastating whether you have it, even more devastating to lose it and realize you don't have it. So that's a good way to describe it, is devastating love, which I don't think I've ever heard before.
It's I don't, what adjectives can I use? I don't, it's so beyond. And there, I don't want to leave. I am in heaven
Are
now.
are you saying in your head or verbally saying you don't want to leave, or you just know that was a feeling you had?
It at first, and for much of it, it was just the experience of being, and then the creep in of, am am I dead? Am I here to stay? What is happening? What is the end game of this? and slowly things start to change. And now I am leaving heaven. Okay. And I'm leaving heaven with the same amount of velocity that I got there, but it was way different. Okay. So I feel I am in heaven, and the fact that I am a spirit, a David, creeps in. And when that happens, it's time for me to go, because I am no longer just in the pure spirit of being in love, in the center of all love.
Okay.
And
So
so
when
I am,
you go, or like when you say David, like when the person kicked in, that's
yes.
when God was like, all right, you're not here. So time for
Yeah,
you to go.
it's time, you've been given enough, boy.
Which I
So
guess in a way is comforting because, right, you're not dead. You got the best of both worlds. Probably didn't feel like that when you were leaving heaven, but to be now a person who got to experience heaven and then come back to earth to get to spend the rest of your life knowing it exists sounds like the best of both worlds.
yes, but it was traumatic. It was being birthed again, negatively in a sense, because I was sucked out of heaven now. And now, conscious or not, I realize, like, hey, bro, you're about to go back to the imperfect. Okay. Not only did Scotty pass, and my existence here is full of sadness right now after experiencing this bliss, because once
Yeah.
part of me can't wait to get back, obviously. All right. God forbid I'm not judged and sent the other way. But so,
If you are, I don't want to go there either, dude. So that's all.
bro,
Knowing you as a person, if you don't make it, I
you
don't
have
know if I
questions.
want to be in that club.
Yes. Well, the judge, when I tell you we will be judged. So I am leaving now. And now I am starting to regain some semblance of consciousness, but not yet. There is the pain of birth that I am leaving. What all of our goal is in life is to get to earn heaven, to earn his love and be with him. And that is heaven. Um, and I'm moving away from the thought of me leaving that is more important than life here or anything here, right? It is the ultimate. Um, and I am upset with it, okay, without like being like, mad or whatever, but I find myself getting pulled back through, like, there have been movies that have shown it a little bit. It's like a tornado, black and white, like a tunnel, right? I am coming from a tunnel now, back from heaven, and I am spinning like maybe Wizard of Oz when she goes in the, in the thing, right?
Tornado or
Um,
whatever. Yeah.
yes. So as I approach, come closer and closer back, I start realizing that I am screaming in a language that I do not understand. And then I realize that I am wailing the birth process of being reborn into human again. I am at the speed of light again coming through, and I realize, holy shit, dude, like, I'm screaming. I am being born. My spirit is being reborn, ideally coming back to a body. Don't understand that yet, but I don't know what's happening. I am wailing. I am sad, and I am screaming in a language I don't understand. And as I come back into my body, I left through my head and I came back through my belly button, if you will. So when I finally got back into the physical, the difference that in this world, the distance between here and here in your heart is It's a long distance. I don't know the word I'm looking for. It is, you know, between me getting back into my body and actually exploding through my heart again as Dave, that was a long journey still.
Hmm.
Okay. From this timelessness into now time. And as I came back to explode back through my heart, my spirit, into my body, I woke up screaming and crying. I was crying. Wailing is better. I was wailing and I was screaming, I will only shed tears of joy. I will only shed tears of joy.
Huh.
And I came to kind of from this experience. And that's what I woke up to myself screaming this. And that was the language. That is what I had been screaming from heaven. And it was so profound for me today. I mean, at that point, because I will only shed tears of joy. And the message and what I had learned from God was that no matter what, joy is our end goal. God's love is so beyond our understanding that anything that happens here, anything bad, good, that we need to approach it with that joy of being given the gift of life here.
Dave, I went to school for 6 years at Catholic school, right? They didn't get any message across that made me feel like I was lucky to be loved by God. In 6 years, nuns, people whose job it was to do what they couldn't do in 6 years that you just did in an hour of telling me a story, bro.
The story continues